All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
And today's guest is Dr. Chris Raynor. Dr. Raynor is an orthopedic surgeon specialising in sports medicine, a University of Western Ontario alumni, the Human 2.0 co-founder, husband and proud father to 3 exceptionally talented grown children. After a long course of training, he has worked as an orthopedic surgeon for over a decade and now works to change the face of medicine through his various social media platforms. He seeks to educate and empower people by teaching them the tools with which to positively impact their musculoskeletal health and wellness, but not satisfied to merely talk the talk, he also wants to walk the walk as well. As an educator as well as a physician, Chris Raynor wants to help and empower everyone to take charge of their own health and wellness. He wants everyone to become a better version of themselves, and he wants to give everyone the tools with which to do it. After all, if you're not going to do it, who will? And now, let's get to the interview. Because I love your social media. Like, I love your YouTube. The stuff you go into, it's like the inner child's dream. You know, you cover all these amazing films and show what the realistic hits would be like. And, you know, you cover areas that most of us don't want to think about. It's like the dark side of, you know, obesity and things like that. How on earth do you describe what you do? Because you have this amazing YouTube channel. You're, you know, an orthopedic surgeon. If somebody says to you, who are you? How do you explain this amazing life you have?
I would just say to people that I am an educator, and I'm using social media as my tool with which to educate people. And I'm educating people about the things about which I am passionate. And so this is things that I like to, either content I like to consume, activities I like to do, or things that I think are important. And so I base what I share with people around those things. And I am really just trying to I really believe in the idea of we control our own destinies. And so I am trying to create a lifestyle, the lifestyle that I want, right? So I'm trying to do cool shit, and I'm trying to talk about cool shit. And I think that by doing those things and putting that energy out there, that one day I will be the cool shit that people talk about.
Oh no, you've definitely got an audience. Like, I couldn't find a bad word about you. You know, like when you were doing sort of like jumped on Device's channel and you were introducing things, people are like, oh, check out his channel. It's amazing. You've got to look at it. You know, everybody has this passion, this love for you. But how on earth did you get involved in this? You were talking about cross training. You've talked about participating in sports and being an active child. Was that the kind of thing that got you interested in movement? Or did you always kind of think, how's the body work, etc.?
So I've always had an interest in how the body works and that kind of thing. But what really got me going in movement, that was kind of a fluke, and that after being in practice as an orthopedic surgeon for a few years, I was really unhappy with the results that my patients were getting after I would send them to physiotherapy. And let me preface what I'm going to say by saying that I don't want people who are listening to think that I think I'm the perfect surgeon and I don't make any mistakes and that nobody can do it better than me. That's not the case. But what I'm talking about is that like if I did an operation, and when I did that operation, I planned that operation to go a certain way. I did that operation, and technically speaking, everything about that operation was exactly the way I planned it. Everything went successful. I looked at the result afterwards, and I said, "Yeah, man, that's successful." I checked the range of motion before I left the operating room. I checked the stability. Everything was bang on point. And so I said, okay, my part is done. Now it becomes the patient and the physiotherapist part. So in those situations, uh, I would send those patients away. And some of the times I would not get a good result. And when you look back and you try and figure out everything that you weren't getting, everything that was under your control, I go, man, I addressed all of those things. Why didn't this work out? So I started to see that. I started to look into physiotherapy a little bit, and I started to realize, oh my God, not all physiotherapists are created equal, and they're not all doing the same things. Some would be doing things that I thought were worthwhile, and others would be handing people a sheet of paper and say, "Here are your exercises. Go do that. Bye bye." And
Yep.
and I'm like, "Geez, man, this is no good." So um, I'm I like to think of myself as a problem solver, and so I started to I started to become a little bit more specific, and what I was asking for when I sent patients to physiotherapy. And if you ask physiotherapists in my city, Ottawa, is a city of 1 million, but I already have a reputation, and they would say, "Oh my God, you should see his physiotherapy requisitions," because it's not, "Oh, had knee surgery, physiotherapy for knee." It's like, this patient had this surgery. They will require active progressive exercise therapy, no modalities, no machines. I specifically want you to address range of motion and flexibility of this joint, and then strengthening of these muscles in this particular order, and a home exercise program, balanced proprioceptive training. And this is what I was writing, and I was writing this all the time. And once I started doing that, things got a little bit better, but it still wasn't quite to the extent that I wanted. And I would come home all the time and I'd complain to my wife. And my wife was like, after a while, she got sick of hearing me. She said, "Oh, you should shut up and do something about it." And so I said, "Okay, great." So I opened a facility. I said, I'm not trained as a physiotherapist. I don't want to tell physiotherapists what to do, but I'm going to open a facility. So I did that, called Human 2.0. And so we have a combined rehabilitation movement facility in Ottawa and we service all kinds of patients, whether they're injured rehab patients, or whether they're athletes, performance athletes, elite athletes. We treat them all and train them all. So I did that. And when I first opened that facility, I had the great fortune, although I'm not working with this individual anymore, but I had the great fortune at that time of hiring a coach who was doing a lot of interesting things. And he when I met him, he had previously been a CrossFit coach. And then he was kind of switching out of CrossFit because a lot of patients, or a lot of his clients, were injuring themselves. And he was focusing more on this thing called mobility. And I'm like, mobility? What the hell is that? What are you talking about? And so he introduced me to that. And I started to do that because, geez, like my facility has a gym in it and we have classes. So when I'm not when I'm not seeing patients, I'll do some classes. I love to work out. So I did that. And I'm starting to look at what he was doing a little bit more analytically. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And this is a different way of thinking about training, because prior to that, my focus on training had always been bigger, faster, stronger, right? Because like I had played American football, not what you guys call football, but I had played American football. I had played it since the age of 8. And always, I had played at all levels, including I had gone as high as the CFL, which is our NFL equivalent. Like my idea about training had always been bigger, faster, stronger, right? But as I was done with football now, and an orthopedic clinician, I was still working out. so personally, I had to change my focus. And what I really liked about mobility is like, hey, it's not saying that you can't be strong, but it's incorporating strength and flexibility, marrying the two, and then its focus is about longevity, right? Because I can't do as I'm 53, and as a 53-year-old man, well, it's not that I can't do bigger, faster, stronger stuff, but at 53, if I'm doing bigger, faster, stronger, all of that as my primary type of training, I am going to crush my body, right? And I see that. I treat those patients. I see them coming from CrossFit or from other disciplines, and they're going to crush themselves, and because your body can't take that indefinitely. So that was my introduction to mobility, and then I saw the use of it for myself, first for myself, and then I thought, hey, this is going to be great for patients. And so then I started to sort of steer our organization, our business, in that direction and say, hey, this is something that I think is worthwhile for people. It maintains fitness, it maintains your health and wellness, and it also approaches those things from the point of longevity. And this is something that you can do for life. So that's how I kind of got into it. And that's why I sort of promote that.
No, it's great. I mean, because we're definitely moving in the right direction with like looking at mobility, flexibility, longevity. We always look at athletes, but then we don't look at the guy who can barely go up a flight of stairs without being out of breath. And that's something I think a lot of us are now becoming interested. Like when I went to the physio last, like you said, I got a piece of paper that said, here's 10 moves. And it was very basic. It didn't matter what level you are, what you had done. Do you see a similarity in the wear and tear? Is it those kind of like overuse of an injury? Somebody sat with a dodgy knee for years and they eventually see somebody when it's basically falling apart. Do we see it as a sense of pride rather than, because you said health is essential.
Yes. Well, when I think back to my training prior to my own clinical practice, right? It was always about being tough, being man, not showing weakness, right? And so if you were injured, you didn't want to show that you were injured. And even when I think about my own time on the football field, there were times when I would hide injuries as a point of pride because I'm trying to be tougher than the next guy and show them that I'm not, I'm not weak. And we carry that forward, but it does have an impact on our bodies. And there are so many occasions where I can think of people who, whether they're patients or people I've created content about, or even sometimes in my own with myself, that where we had something, we could have received treatment to make that thing better when it was manageable, but we did not do that out of a sense of pride or stupidity or whatever, a stubbornness. And then later it ends up being something that is unmanageable. I just recently did a piece of content on Ronnie Coleman, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. And I remember as a young teen watching Ronnie Coleman. He was competing against Dorian Yates, and it's like he would lift incredible amounts of weight. And I remember his little saying, "Lightweight," right? He's throwing up these huge weights. But when I did this content, because now Ronnie Coleman can barely walk. And when you look at what he did and you listen, I remember there's one thing in particular that he said that struck me. And he said how he had injured his back. First, he injured it during football. And then he went to go see a chiropractor. And he, at one point, his back hurt him so badly that and he was still playing football at that time in college, that he had to go see the chiropractor on a daily basis for several years.
Jeez.
Right? And I think to myself, dude, like, you could have just gone and seen a physician, get some imaging, and then treated that problem. And that, him doing that was the precursor that caused his eventual decline over the years to this condition that he's in now. And he could have just seen somebody and potentially have stopped that whole cascade of events, right? And it's such a shame. And it's not to say that, I needed him to, not have a back problem so that he could continue on bodybuilding and still be competing. No, that's not it. Well, all I'm saying is that he could have treated himself so that in his retirement from the sport of bodybuilding, he could walk around normally, and interact with his family and kids without having to use crutches or a walker or have had 12 operations on his back. It could have been different.
Because I went to the Arnold's recently, the sports festival, and the number of people who were just devastated by injury, and it was almost like they continued through it because it was like a sense of pride or a competition. And you think, does it ever frustrate you when you do these videos and you see people who you knew with a bit, like, because you understand the body structure, the orthopedic side of things, that with a simple bit of work and some good focused rehab, they could be, they could have the longevity, they could have the freedom?
For sure that is frustrating, I see this quite often with even some of my own patients, that people where I'm not sure what it is, pride, or they think they know better or whatever, but they will make decisions where they are going to ignore this particular thing, this particular problem, and carry on down a particular path and then it's like I know the outcome, right? I can see what the outcome of their approach will be. And then I think they're trying to avoid having to do this work. But I think, in the grand scheme of things, that work, although it may be an inconvenience now, is relatively minor when compared to the inconvenience that you are going to have down the road, right? Which will be so much larger and so much more of a pain. I see that, and it does frustrate me. But I remember being very frustrated when I was creating that video about Ronnie Coleman, because I just thought, man, you did this to yourself, and there was no need. Mm-hmm. And sure, you can say to everybody, I'm the greatest bodybuilder that ever lived, but you can barely walk. And you've had to undergo 12 operations, and it's like, it didn't need to be that way.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point of having trophies if you can barely walk to pick them up?
Exactly.
I mean, that's why I'm so glad you've got such a badass YouTube channel. You're bringing like an understanding to the masses of, that's fucked up. Don't do that. That's how we would fix this. You have this unique way of delivering it. You give like an educational spiel but you also bring the data, you bring the research papers, but you make it fun, you make it enjoyable, you break up media of films we watched and like the Raid, John Wick. I love these kind of shows. Every episode of yours, I'm like, when's the next video out? You just can't help but binge into it. You have such this great way of doing it. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. I appreciate your comments, and it's good to know that my content is well received. So what I'll say is that I've had the great fortune of learning from those around me, and when prior to me starting this, my wife and I had another YouTube channel, which was just kind of just about fun and humor stuff, and we had created that because two of my sons were fairly prominent YouTubers for a couple of years, and their friends were all YouTubers. So we got to see that from the inside, because we were the permissive parents. When my son and his friends were blowing up shit, they were doing it in our backyard or destroying stuff. None of the other parents would allow them to do it. And my wife and I thought, well, if they're going to do this, we'd rather have them do it where we can see it so that we know that they're being safe. And I was kind of the in the background safety guy. So we saw that, and we had and people had said, "Oh, geez, your parents are funny. They should have a channel." So we started a channel, and I did that. But then we stopped after a while. It was just kind of very onerous having to do that, prepare for that, and it was just random shit. So at one point we just stopped, and I said to my wife, if I'm going to start a channel, I want to start something that's going to be of value to people, and I want to provide something that's educational. So when I started a channel, the Dr. Chris channel, that was my intention. And if you look back at my very first videos, the videos were more didactic and just kind of the way that I was taught in university or when I was during my residency. And that's the kind of content I was putting out. And although I do have one of the things that I did before medicine was teaching. I have a formal bachelor's of education in teaching. I was just kind of doing this old, dry approach to education, and I thought this. I looked at the data from people watching, and I thought this is not really. It's not going to catch on, so I need to change what I'm doing. So I thought to myself, why can't I be a little bit like what my son is like, or my sons are like? They got a little bit of clickbait in their titles and thumbnails, and they're funny, they're humorous. And I thought, there's no reason why I can't take this educational content and be a little bit humorous, a little bit funny, and then it would make it more palatable. And ultimately, the recipe that I decided upon is I said, look, I'm just going to like when you see me in the videos, people go, "Oh, you're putting on an act. You're doing all this." If you knew me in real life, you would know that what you see is what you get. I have one speed, and I'm loud. I have one volume, and that's what I am like all the time. And my patients know that. The hospital staff know that. And that's just what I'm like in the video. So I thought, instead of trying to be this uptight, dodgy, old, like classical teaching kind of guy, I'm just going to be myself, and I'm going to entertain people. But when they're not paying attention, I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of education, right? And so I thought, that's what I'm going to do. And as soon as I started doing that, the channel started to gain more traction. And so, I stumbled upon this approach of just picking current events, just all things from all different kinds of media that people like and stuff that I like, and then trying to figure out, well, how can I take this thing? Like for example, John Wick. That's one of my favorite movie franchises, and I love the films. And I thought, how can I teach people about orthopedics, sports injuries, or traumatic injuries, how we treat them using John Wick? So that's what I did, and people started to like that. And then I realized, like, if I think about this rationally, the community of people that are going to watch videos on orthopedic surgery, that's a pretty small population of people, right? Like, who's going to watch that? Other orthopedic surgeons, orthopedic trainees, or people who are thinking about going into orthopedics, and a few other people. But if I think about who's going to like John Wick, or who's going to like The Raid, who's going to like Warhammer, the community of people that are going to like those things, way bigger, right? And I can talk to those people about the stuff that they love. But as I said, when they're not paying attention, sprinkle in a little bit of education, and so they get their entertainment, but I've also educated them. And then wait a minute, it's the end of the video, and they go, "Holy shit, I just learned about X, Y, and Z. I didn't know that before," right? And it's like they think they're learning about Warhammer, or they're thinking they're learning about John Wick, but I'm teaching them about orthopedic surgery. And so that is kind of how I stumbled upon that. And that's why I've decided to kind of go that route. And I recognize that other orthopedic surgeons, some of my colleagues, they look at what I do and they think, oh, it's silly. Like, what's the point? But I would say to them this, I have the analytics for my content, right? And so I know how many people it has touched. And if you think about this for a second, the average orthopedic surgeon will go to a conference, and if he's an academic orthopedic surgeon, he will speak at that conference to maybe 1,000 orthopedic surgeons. Okay. And then those orthopedic surgeons, say you have like whatever percentage, let me be generous and say 10% of those orthopedic surgeons are going to go out and propagate what they have learned about that particular thing out to their community of students, residents, whatever. So now we've gone from 1,000 to say we've gone to 10,000. And then those people are going to, either touch their patients with that information or, incorporate that information into their practice, and it will go out. And so we'll say we've gone from 1,000 to 10,000. I'll be really generous to say 100,000 over the lifespan of whatever that piece of information. And I touch 100,000 people with one video. I touch, you know what I mean? Like, and each month I have 2.5 million views on my videos, right? And over the course of the last year, I got 26 million views. So it's like the power of me being able to impact people is significantly overshadows that of my academic colleagues. And not only that, they have to disseminate their message to an orthopedic surgeon, who's then going to disseminate it to his trainees, who's then are going to disseminate it to the public. I am direct to the public with this information. So the ability of me to influence people and to educate people is significantly greater than what it is for my academic colleagues. So they laugh at what I'm doing, some of them, and they poo-poo it, but it's like, bro, just look at the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves. So,
well, I mean, my day job, my alter ego, I suppose you could call it, is I work in a university as a program coordinator for PhD students. And I see some of the white papers and all that they read, and it's so dry and it's so dull. And like, your way of presenting gets people interested, but like you're saying, it educates them on such unique things that they think, oh, I'll watch another one. And before they know it, they've got a good grounding in, oh, that's wrong with my knee. Oh, my shoulder shouldn't be just like, I shouldn't have no strength in my rotator cuff. And oh, wait, I know what rotator cuff is. And oh, wait, I know what this part is. And there's so much. I think media now is actually, this generation are actually getting taught, where we know more about our bodies. We more know about things by what we see in films and things like that.
Yes.
Do you think it's scratched your own itch though as well? Because you cover such a wide range of like body modification, surgical stuff, but you also look at like film, anime, TV shows, etc. Has this kind of wide range helped you become a better surgeon, do you think? Because you've learned new techniques, new understanding of things?
Well, so anytime I do a video, I am learning about all kinds of things, right? And I'm fortunate now that the channel is big enough that I have a very small team, but I do have a team that works with me, right? So I have a researcher, I have a writer, and I have an editor. And so we plan out the videos, and I plan out topics. And I always talk with my writing team about what are the things that I want to talk about in the video cover, and what's the angle that I want to present. So we do that. I'll have the writer go through, and they'll kind of give me a rough draft. Then I'll take that draft and I will complete it, fill it out, adding in my sense of humor, all that kind of stuff to cover these things. But in researching all of those topics and learning about all these topics, I don't think it can't help but make me a better physician or a better surgeon, or just a more knowledgeable person. Because like I believe that information is king, and I see myself as a lifelong learner, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have additional degrees to prove it. I do have 4 university degrees, but like I don't necessarily need to have a PhD, well, I don't have a PhD yet. I have 2 master's degrees, but I don't need to have another master's degree or another whatever to be educated. I can just educate myself by reading or listening on a variety of other topics, and I may not have formal recognition of that education, but I still will be able to use that in my day-to-day life. And I think that there are a ton of things that I learn all the time, which help me to change the way that I do things on an ongoing basis, right? Like I think that my clinical practice evolves because of what I talk about, what I do. And my surgical practice also evolves because of what I talk about, what I do. And not only that, but because of the questions that people ask me, because sometimes people ask me questions and it makes me think, oh, geez, well, why do I do this thing? Right. And sometimes I find, oh, I did this thing because I was trained how to do that 15 years ago, but I've never really looked at that particular thing until now. And hey, by the way, now that I'm looking at it, given the things that I've learned over the last 15 years, either experientially or from reading or whatever, I now know, hey, yeah, there's a better way to do this. I can do this differently. Or I realized something because I was studying, or not studying, but I was researching for a new video, and they made me aware of something that I had not previously been aware of. And it's like, oh, I'm going to incorporate that. So for sure, it does help to, guide my evolution and help to educate me. And because I incorporate aspects of what I learn while researching these topics into my day-to-day life all the time.
Because I love how like your lifelong journey has encouraging other people to have the same. People are kind of like, I didn't even know about this. Oh, I'm going to go find out more about it. So you're giving that sort of lust for education to other people. It's an amazing tool to educate, but also encourage as well.
Well, so you will understand this because of what you do on a day-to-day basis. I love learning, and I fully believe that education is the key to all of our happiness, right? And I want there is some people have this, like you still see this even in popular media, that there's like this stigma to being smart, right? And people think, oh, well, you're a nerd. Oh my God, you're smart. Like part of what I'm doing, I'm trying to show people, wrong, bro. Being smart is freaking cool, right? And the smarter you are, the more likely you are able to get all of the things in life that you desire, whatever it is that you want. The smarter you are, the better your chances of attaining that thing. Not only that, the better the chances of the world being a better place to live is so much more attainable. Like, without going too political, right? I'm a Canadian. Most of my audience is American, so I kind of tailor things towards them. But speaking just for a moment about politics, you look at Trumpism, and I look at Donald Trump and his behavior, and I think like people can argue one side or the other whether they think what he has done or things that he did were good or not. And like I don't want to comment on that, but one thing I do want to say is that if I look at when Trump carries himself, and if I look at his overall level of intelligence and I listen to him speak, I would say that it's probably less than many of the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis in the PhD program.
Hmm.
And listen, if he's not that smart, that's okay. I'm not saying there's a problem with being not that smart, but his behavior, it's like he reveled in his ignorance. He reveled in that, and he gave people he gave them the permission to feel good about being dumb. Bro, the world is not gonna this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. And regardless of what your position is on his political aspirations, his motives, or anything that he's done, regardless of that, we shouldn't be celebrating stupidity, right? And we, as I said, it's not a problem if people are not smart, but we should be encouraging everybody to be as smart as possible, right? And to learn as much as they can about the world, about each other, and how to coexist peacefully, right? And my goal is to make the world a better place. And I will fully admit this. I want the world to be a better place for everybody. But this is a selfish goal, right? And this is one thing that people don't understand. They don't seem to get. The world doesn't exist outside of you, or you don't exist outside of the world. You are a part of the world, and the world is a container in which you are contained. Like, you are encompassed by that. And so if you want good shit for yourself, you have to create it. And that means that entire container needs to be part of that. And so you have all these people who are being stupid, and it's like they shit where they eat. Why would you do that? I want the world to be a better place because I'm living in it. I want it to be better for me, right? But I recognize because I have read about many different topics, because I have a viewpoint that it may be more tolerant because of what I have read and what I've experienced. I recognize, in order for that to be good for me, it has to be good for everybody else too, right? Because everybody else is part of it. And there's no way for me to isolate myself from everybody else and yet still be part of this container and be within this container. So I just think, this was a bit of a ramble. I went off on a tangent, but it's just listen, I think it's important for everybody to be smart, not just some people. Everybody should be smart. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is very important. It will shape the world into what you want. And if we are to all coexist and be part of this and live great lives, then we all need to be smart.
No, 100% agree. I mean, I when I went on and he was parroting the idea that there's alternative facts, there, I was kind of, sorry, what?
Listen, man, I cringe and laugh inside every time I have that. I'm like, there is no alternative. It's like saying physics doesn't exist. It's like saying time doesn't exist. There are no alternate facts. There are facts. The way you interpret them, that's up to you. But the facts still exist. And that is an absolute. And I just thought people who latched onto that line of thinking, I feel sorry for them, because I just think, man, and the only thing, I feel sorry for them, and I feel a little bit concerned, because the other thing is that, and I don't mean to offend anybody who's watching this or listening to this, but dumb people can't inherit the earth, man. We cannot allow dumb people to run the show and inherit the earth, because they're just going to drive this into the ground, and to what end? For no reason other than they think they know it all. It's just yeah.
Well, I mean, jump on Twitter, for example, and you'll see people sitting there saying, "Oh, look at this! I think this," and they'll pull a fact out, but it's say a conservative leaning way newspaper, or this is a leftist newspaper, and they won't be able to, like, if you did your PhD, you'd be laughed out if you said, here's my sources, and they were all supportive of your, and I keep saying that to people as, read it from that point of view, read there, consider this. And it's like COVID, people are saying, oh, look at this, here's this evidence of X. And
Yes.
I would say it to guys in the, like, academics, and they say, well, where's the blind placebo test? Where's the
Yes.
statistical analysis? Just the basic stuff. And I'm sitting there going, don't ask me. And people are.
So you mentioned COVID, right? And this is where it was became most evident, and Trump's behavior gave permission to this whole line of thinking and people alternative facts, and you're not considering this. And I'm like, people can say whatever the fuck they want. They can do that. That's their prerogative. But in science, and people go, oh, science, facts, you guys, your facts change all the time. Well, that's because our analysis changes, the evidence that we have changes, we learn more about particular things. But I said, science is not a thing. I said, science is a way of thinking, and its default position is skepticism, right? And in science, you know this as a PhD coordinator. In science, if you want to prove something, you have to have facts, and it's a certain level of facts. All facts are not the same, right? There are 5 levels of research evidence, right? And so I say to people all the time, listen, don't show me your papers, whatever, unless you have a level 3 or above paper, right? Level 3 is the first level where you have a control, right? So unless you show me level 3 or above, and ideally it would be level 1 or 2, it's going to be a gold standard. It's going to be a meta-analysis, right? But if not, I want you to show me a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled prospective study. And that is different than 2 guys writing in their backyard. Oh, my neighbor drank Javex and he was okay and he got rid of COVID.
Boy.
Like it's not all the same. And the thing is, because again, this comes back to what I said before: dumb people can't rule the world. If people don't have a good ability to critically analyze, like you know this, analyzing a paper, this is a skill, right? We spent time during our residency and during medical school learning how to analyze a paper. And I would say I am still, even myself, I am a novice at this, right? And so if I'm a novice and I did this for, I did it in an academic setting for 8 years, and then, actually before that, because I have a master's where I was doing lab work and bench work, so even longer than that. So if I've been doing that for 12 years or whatever, and then on an ad hoc basis for the last 15 years as a consultant, and I'm still not that great at it, the average person, like, oh my God, they have no skills at it. And then you have all of this information. One of the benefits of the internet is that people now have access. So you have all this information, and their ability to critically analyze this information is poor. And so it's like, oh my God, like, what are they to do? They don't know, and they can't tell it. They're inundated by all this information. They can't tell what's good, what's not. And so they all give it the same weight just because people can speak. And this also, you mentioned Twitter, and Elon talked about the it's the town square. Everybody should be able to say what they want, and people will figure out what's good. No, they won't. Some of the people might, but other people won't. And when you have somebody like Donald Trump having how many ever millions of followers, and he's saying, well, maybe we could put some light inside people to get rid of COVID, or we could put bleach, some kind of disinfectant inside of people. People will look at that, and educated people will go, well, that's idiotic. Why would you do that? Right? Because they'll be able to critically analyze that and go, that level of information, that gets a -5 on the importance scale. versus other people who don't have that ability, they don't have the skill set, and they go, oh, I'm going to give that a 10 out of 10, and I'm going to weigh that against recommendations from the CDC or from the World Health Organization. I'm going to weigh them equally. Like, man,
But see, that I think that's the problem now, is because they've built up this level of fear of there's a secret society holding against you. There's all this is fake, because I get that all now. It's like, well, this actually statistical data. Oh no, that if the FBI has been compromised, it's a political.
right.
Nobody wants to listen to this because we'd rather believe that there's some bad guy out preventing you from doing it. Where there's plenty of opportunities, but you have to. It's like, how can people be interested in YouTube videos but not interested in learning about where their information's coming on, where they decide on how they vote, what money, how they spend their money, what charities they support, how they live their lives? I just think it's terrifying.
Yes. Well, part of what I'm trying to do, like I said, I want people to know education is cool, but also when I'm talking about research papers, right? I want people to understand this is where I'm getting my information from. This is how I know what to talk to you about, and how I know what's real and what's not. I throw those in there so that people can. I'm not saying to them, go read this paper, but I'm providing a source for my information. And I want them to understand, when you are talking, you can't just talk out of your ass, or you can't talk about something, oh, I saw this on Twitter and it's facts because I saw it on Twitter. No, where's the paper? Where's your resource to support your position, right? This is the way that academically trained people, this is the way in science how we debate our ideas. You come with an idea, I come with a different idea. We both supply our sources, and then we say, well, this is why my idea is valid, or why I think it's right because of these sources. And we compare the strength of the sources. And you say, no, I think mine is right because of this. And we compare the strength of the sources. And in that comparison, we kind of come to a consensus to go, well, you know what? These 5 papers that you presented have stronger points. They're more accurate than these 3 papers that I presented over here. I think, yeah, this makes more sense, right? And it's not to say that it's end all and be all, because as I said, science changes all the time. New study comes out, we get more data, and so then we can refine. But if the truth is this point over here, when we start looking for the truth, at first we're doing this. And then as we get closer to the truth, the oscillations get smaller and smaller, and eventually we get to the truth. But we're going to see things on either side as we work through scientific method and research to gather the information that helps us figure out, well, what is the truth? What is the actual reality of things?
Because as soon as I say anything like, against, say, Donald Trump or somebody like that, they go, oh, you're a liberal. And if you say something about the left side, it's, oh, you're a conservative. And I'm like, what? No, I'm just trying to validate it. Before, my understanding of it is that is not pure. That's not something, there's too many gaps or there's too many holes in that. I want to understand who did that, where it created. People were believing, there was that one about, there was a God code in something where that you could read into the DNA and it was a message from God in it. And I said, the simple fact is you can look at that university and that professor doesn't exist. And there's all these, and people are like, no, it's true. And you're like, because somebody sent you a link doesn't mean it's true.
Yes.
You can't, it was just, that's what scared me. And the feedback, say your fentanyl video, and people like, no, demonetized because it was about a drug, or obesity, people kicked off because it's body shaming. It's rather than deal with the issues and look and go, is this healthy? Is this hurting people? Or chiropractors, is the procedure of snapping necks and people with surgical issues a danger? People are like, no, you can't badmouth somebody. How did you find that sort of attitude by putting the content out that's actually challenging into areas people go, oh, no, we can't touch that. That's a wide area.
So I as I said before, I'm a what you see is what you get kind of person, right? And so, and I'm very outspoken about things. I don't mind telling people my position, and my position is not always right, but I will. I don't mind saying what I think, and so there is this idea, like for example, with the chiropractic. Oh, I shouldn't speak about another profession and blah blah blah. And I actually got a letter from my college of physicians and surgeons because a chiropractor complained that I was talking about chiropractors in a video, and they said, "Oh well, my college said to me, with we just want you." We're not disciplining you. We're not saying you've done anything wrong. We just want to let you know that we are aware that you have commented in this piece of content about chiropractors, and you are commenting in a negative way. And we want to remind you that it's another profession, and we should speak kindly of other professions. And I'm like, yo, I'm not smashing all chiropractors. I'm smashing chiropractors that do this particularly dodgy practice that I think is unsafe. And I, as a clinician, one of the roles as a clinician that I'm supposed to play, is an educator, and I am also supposed to look out for the welfare of my patients. And so, if I ever had a patient that had spinal instrumentation, and a chiropractor did a manipulation on that person, I would think that's unsafe. And I don't have any qualms about talking about that and saying that I think that is the case. So, people give me feedback, some of which is negative, when I badmouth or say negative things about those situations. And again, for the most part, I just refer them back to the literature, and I say, look, if you like chiropractor and because it makes you feel good, that's your prerogative. And if you feel upset that I commented about a bad thing about a chiropractor, again, that's your prerogative to feel that way. But let me point you to the literature that says over here is either the support for this thing that the chiropractor did, or the lack of support for that thing. And again, let me reiterate that science is this practice where, to find the truth, we do research, and we then analyze the results of the research, and we use that to guide what we say is true and to guide our actions. And if any chiropractor thinks that I have done them wrongly, or I have said something that is out of whack, all they need to do is to point me to the literature that says that what I have said is wrong. That point to the literature that supports their position in what they want to do, and with the one caveat that it needs to be level 3 or above, because if they're going to try and refute something that is a meta-analysis, and they're going to refute that with a case, a cohort study, or a case series, or an anecdotal report, man, get out of here with that shit. It was presented in a journal, but that level of evidence is widely known in the scientific community to not be as strong as, one guy writing in, oh, I had a patient that I did this and this happened. That case report does not have the same strength as a meta-analysis that had thousands of patients in it, right? Because they're just not powered the same. So you can't.
You think it'd be the other way, wouldn't you? That you, like, say if you said, no, that doesn't work, do you think, oh, brilliant, this is an opportunity for me to show that thing that you said doesn't work does, and here's the evidence, and here's the thing. We've all become kind of, why do we jump on the defensive? Why are we not doing things of saying, let's find out what is perfect for this patient? Why? I just don't get why people sort of would rather sit there and do the ad hominem attacks, or the, oh, what do you know about it? And
but I think you know, it is, I can understand why to some extent, because nobody wants to be challenged on what they do, right? And nobody wants to be told, hey, this thing that you believe in, or this thing around which you have modeled your life, is crap. Nobody wants to be told that. So I get that. But if their true goal, if their true desire is to do what is beneficial for the patient, right? And chiropractors, I don't think have to take the Hippocratic Oath as physicians do, but I had to take the Hippocratic Oath, and so I'm trying to do what's right for the patient at all times. And so that, to me, that means, well, I need to find out exactly what is best for the patient. And people complain about me being critical in my videos about chiropractors, but I'm also critical of orthopedic surgeons and physicians in other situations as well. And I don't necessarily have as much content about it. And that's largely because of I do, I want to educate people on a variety of topics, but I also I'm playing the YouTube game, right? And that I am what things that work, right?
Get more views.
And allow me to grow my channel. Those are the things I'm going to talk about, because those are the things that get views, right? But there's other things that I talk about, like one of the videos that I'll be doing at some point in the near future is I'm going to be talking about stem cells, because people go, oh my God, I can do stem cells. I have arthritis in my knee, and this guy sold me, $6,000 treatment for stem cells, injections in my knee, and it's going to make my knee cartilage grow back. And I'm like, wrong. It's not going to do that. And you got ripped off, man. And it was a physician that ripped you off. So I want to do a video on that. And that's something that I speak about. Although I haven't done content on it, I do speak about that all the time with my own patients. And patients come and they say, oh, well, can you do stem cells for this? Can you do HA injections for this? And I say, look, the studies showing the efficacy of that, of these things, is very, very weak. And the results are poor. And it may help your symptoms a little bit, but in terms of reconstituting your cartilage or anything like that, not going to do it, and it's a waste of your time. And as the owner of a healthcare facility, I could do a lot of that, and I could inform, or I could encourage my staff to do a lot of that, the sports medicines physicians that work with me. But I don't, because ethically, to me, even though I could make a ton of money doing that, I go, the research is not there. And I would not be able to sleep with myself at night knowing that I had conned people into doing these things, spending their money, and it's not going to be beneficial for them. So, I do, people are commenting about what I say all the time, and they have there may be some criticism, but I take that in stride. And again, I always try, whether it's the people in my office or the people on in the comments section, I try to point them back to the literature and say, this is the standard that we use to determine whether what I'm saying is true or whether what you're saying is true. And here are the references to support my position. If you want me to shut up or change my mind, give me your references. I am more than happy to learn and be educated. Show me your references. And it's funny, usually when I do that, people shut up. They stop. There's a few times when people have said, oh, here's my references. And then you look at the quality of them and you go, oh my God, look, you had an N of 10 in this study. It was a case cohort series or whatever, or this was a case report, one patient. Like, come on, bro. You can't talk about the whole world off of one patient. So, and then I have to go back and say, thank you for sharing these, but these are the reasons why what you have shared, these references, are not very strong, right? So you need more strength with what if you want to refute what I'm saying, come back, but with more strength.
But I suppose that goes back to your principle of lifelong learning. You're saying, well, if I'm wrong, show me, and then I can look at it, I can absorb it, understand it, and then readjust my positioning, which science
Yes.
does. And it's
Yes.
like you're saying, science isn't the bogeyman. Science is a thing that's actually going to sit and go, okay, right, okay, we're wrong there. Let's readjust there. Let's repeat that to make sure it's still the situation in different scenarios. Because I love that how you've got like on your blog post, for example, you've got things about just forget about exercising and actually look at generalized exercise patterns. Because you're figured out by what your clients are coming to you with. You can then say, well, this is what the standard problems are. This is how we could fix it, and you offer like training programs and stuff. And I was really impressed at like how you broke it down, how you demonstrated the exercises yourself, and you gave understanding behind it. Do you think, is there any kind of sports that you've found that have they all got their own inherent risks? Because I'm a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I love doing like the bear crawls, using your head as a frame as your one arm's doing this, one leg's doing that, all these kind of things. I mean, you must see baseball players with like wrecked rotator cuffs from pitching, footballers from dodging knees from getting hit and that. Do all sports have the inherent risk? Are there any kind of exercises anybody listening can do that's not going to bugger them up in some way?
Well, so we're talking about two different things here. So we're talking about exercise, and then we're talking about sport. So all sports, almost all sports, have inherent risk in them, because the moment that you add competition to the equation, right? So like you can be doing exercise and doing exercise for longevity, and even that has some risk depending on what you're doing. But the moment that um, you start to add competition to the mix, then you increase the risk level because of for a number of reasons, whether it be many of the reasons have to do with fatigue, right? You start to adopt positions where your fatigue level is not allowing you to maintain that when normally you could, or you start to work outside of your envelope. Your opponent pushes you outside of your envelope, either physically or mentally. They push you outside of your envelope, forcing you to try to attain a position that you cannot normally hold. So all of these, like competition in and of itself, as soon as there is competition, then you increase the risk level. And you only have to look to CrossFit to see this, because CrossFit is exercise. All it is exercise. But what is it? It is exercise for the purpose of sport. So people are competing at exercise. And I had so many patients in my practice that have come as a result of injuries that they'd suffered while either doing or training or competing at CrossFit. And CrossFit is only exercise. That's all it is. But now you have added competition to it, and in so doing, you have exponentially increased the opportunity for injury. So yeah, all forms of sport have their own inherent risk, but that doesn't mean that they are bad or that they are wrong. You just need to be aware of that, and try to frame or try to manage what you do with that knowledge in mind. And one of the things, like, people have to also be very realistic about the level at which they are at. And so let me pull an example for a moment from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, if you are a world class competitor, and like, say for example, you're Gordon Ryan, and you are now competing at the ADCCs or whatever, and there is money on the line, right? Like, this is your how you earn your income and whatnot, and you might not tap. Somebody's got a knee bar or whatever. You might not tap, right? And not only you might not tap, but also your ability, like the margin between someone getting injured and someone being okay at that level is razor thin, right? But if you have the skill set of Gordon Ryan, you might be trapped in a submission and you say, okay, I'm close, but I know if I can do this one thing, I'm good to go. I can get out of that. He can recognize that. He is at that level. Now, that's different than somebody rolling in their average gym, right? And they're in the gym and somebody's got them in a knee bar or whatever, and they're going, I'm not going to tap. I'm not going to tap. Like, are you a freaking idiot, man? Like, you're not competing on a world class level. And you blowing out your knee and having to have multi ligament knee reconstruction, or you ending up with I just saw another video this week. Of a match, and I don't remember where this match was, what the level was, but one of the guys on social media that I follow posted it, and it was an ankle lock, and the time between when he when he got the ankle lock and the time when he fractured the tibia was like a fraction of a second, right? And the guy didn't have time to tap, and I just think like the ability of the average person to know, oh, I'm in trouble, I should tap here, and something bad is going to happen, and then their ability to do something about it before something bad happens, something other than tap, they're like they don't have that ability, they don't have that skill set, and so like why would they subject themselves to that injury? For what? Like to say, oh, I didn't tap, guys. Oh, look at now I have to have an operation and I have to have, I can't walk for 3 months. Like that to me, that makes no sense. So yes, all sports have inherent risk, but depending on what level of athlete you are, that will determine sort of how high the risks are, and also it will determine what is your ability to deal with dangerous situations to minimize risk.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? Is a lot of people, you say, what rehab do you do? And they go, oh, I don't know if you've got it in Canada, but it's like deep heat, like the heat spray on a muscle
Okay.
when it gets a bit sore, and I have a hot bath after,
Yeah.
they're like, but you very rarely see anybody doing a cool down. We do the static stretching we're taught in physical education when we start, and I never even thought about kind of including like the mindset thing of, this isn't an indicator of your masculinity if you tap to a girl, who's been training it for more years than you, who knows the leverage points, or somebody catches a knee bar, you just say, oh, well done. You continue on.
Yeah.
I want to walk. I need to walk to get to my job and stuff. It's quite scary. So you have this great thing about injury prevention in your, like your focus. How do you get people to kind of implement that in? Is there a kind of warm up and a cool down drills that you would do to kind of to get people to understand? And does it change as you get an older athlete?
So I think the injury prevention is something that everybody should be doing, and the way that I kind of get people to incorporate that is by stressing the importance of mobility training, and I speak to people about different aspects of athletic performance, and I try to stress that um, there each component of athletic performance is equally important as the others, and we need to address them all in order to optimize athletic performance. And so, in my mind, the aspects of athletic performance are flexibility, strength, mobility, which is a combination of these two. So, first of all, you have to have a joint that has a range of motion. And in order to maximize our function, we usually want to maximize the range of motion of the joint involved in that particular activity. Then you need to have strength, and you need to have a absolute level of strength that will allow you to stabilize the joints in question and then move the segments around those joints. Then you want to be able to have mobility, which is in my mind, mobility is strength throughout a full range of motion. So I talked about absolute strength, but it's not just good to be strong in one position. You want to figure out and learn how to apply that strength throughout the entire range of motion, because muscles have optimal lengths. So they don't necessarily work the same throughout the entire range of motion. So the person who is able to extend the range of motion over which they can apply strength through a given joint, that person is going to function better. And then once you've done the mobility, you want to now be able to show a mastery of your ability to move. So flexibility, strength, mobility are things that apply to individual joints or individual segments of the body. But when we combine those things all together to then move the body, that is the final sort of piece of the puzzle. And this is what allows us to perform maximally. And so when I talk to athletes, I say, if you are super strong, but you're inflexible, you are going to function more poorly than the guy that has both. And if you are very flexible, but you have no strength, you are going to function more poorly than the person who is both flexible and strong and has great mobility. So we need to address all components. And I always encourage people to focus their time, not eliminate everything else, but to focus most of their effort on the area in which they're weak. And that's because, well, like if you are fast already, you are not necessarily going to gain more performance by trying to be just faster because you're already fast. But the things, like instead of trying to think about what are the things that will make you faster or add more fuel to the fire or more gasoline to the engine, we need to also consider what are the things that are putting brakes on you, right? Like what is the things that are slowing you down? And so, for example, if you have somebody that's super strong and they are a sprinter, and they have great turnover cadence, so that their ability to hit the ground in a number of times in a given time period, that's already high. Well, what is the next best way if that person is super strong, has a good cadence, but they're not very flexible? Well, what happens when you increase their flexibility at the hip and knee and ankle? Well, you increase their stride length. So if I take somebody who is really strong and he can hit the ground, say in a 100-meter race, he can hit the ground 100 times, right? But all of a sudden, I take that person from having a 2-meter stride and I turn them into somebody who has a 2.5-meter stride simply by increasing the flexibility of the hip, knee, and ankle joints. Right now, I've taken that person and taken them from somebody who, in the world 100-meter finals, didn't qualify, and then I make them into somebody who could potentially be racing against, what's his face there, Usain Bolt, right? And I've addressed their weakness. I've treated the deficit that they had and used that to improve their performance. So by focusing on the weak aspect, and spending a lot of your time there, I think you get more bang for buck. Right? It's like the law of diminishing returns. You're already almost maxed out on the speed, so spending more time on speed or strength won't necessarily help you. But spending more time on that thing that is weak will give you more bang for your buck in the end. So I just try to encourage athletes to work on their weaknesses. And generally speaking, because athletes tend to spend more time on bigger, faster, stronger, it's usually their flexibility. And if their flexibility is poor, then for sure their mobility is going to be shit. And so I try and get them to work on those two things. And I try to get them to incorporate them. So if you, like when we're training in our facility, so when we do classes, so I share some of the teaching duties at our gym, and I teach every third weekend. And when I'm doing my classes, I do them in the way that we do them sort of in our organization. And what we do is we have our warm up, then we do what we call structural work. We have strength work, and then we have our cool down, our cardio, our conditioning work, and then cool down. So the structural for us is our mobility work. And so the mobility work, so we've warmed up, we have our muscles warmed up, and the mobility work is focused around things that we're going to be doing in our strength session. And it's dynamic. It's all dynamic work because we don't like to do static stretching before activity. We do that at the end during the cool down. But we incorporate the mobility work, and it is, whatever positions that we're going to be doing. So say, for example, we're doing Olympic lifts and we're going to be doing barbell snatch. Then I'm going to be working on shoulder mobility. I'm going to be working on hip mobility when I'm doing that structural work. And I'm trying to impress upon people the importance of not only are we flexible here, but we are trying to apply strength throughout the full range of motion so that we have better control of the positions and better ability to transition from one position to another.
I love that. That alone would have helped so many people, because I think a lot of people, like you're saying, bigger, stronger, faster.
Yes.
I've seen a big guy in the gym deadlift and squat, so I'm going to do that. Never mind the fact that he's probably buggered up his shoulder muscle, he's wrecked his back from squatting poorly, And yeah, do you think that's just from us not understanding how the body works? Because you have a lot of very very deep kind of analytical tools that you utilize. You show where the muscles are, how they forge into things. You have your Instagram posts where you show how the shoulders set up and things like that, and how things go wrong. Do you think we've almost forgotten that our bodies are meant to go 3D, work together? Our movement patterns aren't just up and down. They're we're meant to be almost animal-like. We've kind of...
For sure. I think that people have forgotten that. And, I think we tend to really, for the most part, only think about the sagittal plane, right? And that's because we move, our eyes are in the front and we move front to back. So everything that we do is either front or back, moving forwards or backwards. And obviously with sports, we've now added the lateral work there. So that's a little bit of the frontal plane. But usually when we train, most of our training is in the frontal plane. When you think about athletes, And when I think about some of the world's best athletes, and usually when I talk about this, I'm picking people in North American sports because that what people can relate to, and I'm trying to think of people now from European sports. But like, say if you think about like. For example, Messi or Ronaldinho is not European, but he plays in the Premier League. So if you think about some of these athletes, right, and you look at them and you think about how they move relative to other people, um, their ability to go from one position to another in all planes, whether it be the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, the transverse plane, their ability to do that is different than the average person. And this is, it's not the entire aspect of what sets them apart, but it is one of the aspects that sets them apart than the average player. And so um, I think a lot of people, the average Joe, forgets about this. But the people who are playing at those highest levels of sport, they have an ability to uh, function in all planes, and they have an ability to master their movement in all of these planes. They have demonstrated that, right? And so if I go back to again, Gordon Ryan, I watched an interview. Lex Friedman was interviewing John Donaher, who is Gordon Ryan's coach, and John was giving Lex an analysis of matches that Gordon went through at the ADCCs, and he was talking about their plan. Our plan was to go through these matches with the least amount, expending the least amount of effort, and suffering or incurring the least amount of injuries, right? And do it in as quickest time as possible so that we could get to the final match. They had already laid out a game plan of where we're going to be in the finals. I want to get to the final match and be in the best shape with the largest energy reserve possible, right? So when you watch that, I was watching these matches, and I'm not a jiu-jitsu player. I did I did start jiu-jitsu a long time ago when I was young, but it was, to me, I stopped at that time. I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, it's not flashy enough. I'm switching to Taekwondo. I want that. So I did Taekwondo. Anyway, but now as somebody who watches MMA and watches UFC, I'm a big fan of jiu-jitsu. We have a number of jiu-jitsu athletes that come and train with us for flexibility, mobility work, and even some of our staff play jiu-jitsu now. And one of the things that I can appreciate because of my exposure to that is, and I cannot fully appreciate this because I don't know how to move from position to position, but I can see when I'm watching people who are skilled, their ability to move from position to position. And when I watched this match and I watched these highlights and I watched Gordon Ryan's ability to move from position to position, and it's not like he's moving through positions in a vacuum. He is moving from position to position while his opponent is actively trying to do other shit, right? His opponent is trying to get away or to do things to him, and to watch him effortlessly move from position to position, maintain top control, do this, get out of the guard, pull guard, do this, counteract this position while at the same time getting the guys back. Oh, but by now, and by the way, I did this, and at the same time, I secured a body triangle, and then I got this position. Like, you look at that and you go, oh, that's so beautiful to watch. It's so easy. And looking at that and then comparing that to, like, say, a white belt, comparing that to stuff that I might do myself, even though I can recognize the beauty of that. It's like, I don't know how to do that. I couldn't do that. And like, I just think, it's amazing when you see somebody at that skill level, their ability to move through positions. And in this particular case, we're talking about jujitsu, but I could apply this to soccer, to whatever. I could take somebody who would never, you could take somebody, walk outside of your house, pull somebody off the street, and you could show them some of the world's greatest hockey players moving. And then you could show them, contrast that with a video of some guys playing, pickup hockey on the frozen pond. And they would instantaneously be able to tell you who's the skilled player. Why? Efficiency of movement, grace of movement, ability to go from one position to another with minimal amount of effort. And you don't need to know anything about that sport to be able to recognize that, right? It is just when the body is moving well, it's something that everybody can recognize, right? And it takes time to be able to develop that ability. And so, I try to impress upon athletes, in order to get to that, you need to nurture all aspects of your fitness. And as a clinician, and now as a kind of a movement guy, I've now recognized that mobility training, mobility is one aspect of that fitness. And you can have all of the other. And if you want to improve the level at which you perform and take it to the next, then mobility training is certainly something that you need to address.
I love that, because I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was like the first character you get in a video game. I was like up, down, left, right. I forgot you could turn, rotate, and I when I look back now, I still have to tell myself that sometimes. That you can like go over the different spatial way. I think you get so used to just like you're saying, forward and back, up, down, forward, back. Like it's some sort of cheat code that is ingrained, and we have to kind of hang. I've got so many more questions. And I know we're way over our time limit. Are you okay for a few more?
Yeah, go ahead. And we could always do another one too, man. I'm having fun.
Brilliant, because I'm loving this. I would love to. I could sit and listen to you for hours, because I have on your YouTube channel. But so when something bad does happen like that, like somebody zigs and zags, and they don't realize that they can flip out, or they wait to the last minute, they get injured and they need surgery. How do you deal with the sort of rehab side of things? Because I know you're a big component on looking at like how they heal up and how they get back to the full range of motion. Have you found any sort of literature, any kind of research lately into like different food intake, different rehab methods, just a different protocol of rehab that works better than the traditional elevate and just come in every so often?
So the brief answer is no. And what I will say, like much of what I talk about is experiential, much of what I talk about with my patients is experiential, in that I try to guide my patients using what I have learned in my own clinical practice. And it's not to say that each individual piece of information is not vetted through some study, because I'm looking up stuff about stretching, I'm looking up stuff about mobility or whatever. I'm doing that all the time. And so when I say to people, there's a study that shows X, you've had an ACL reconstruction, and people say, oh, well, I want to return to sport at this time. And I say, well, the studies show this. about returning to sport. This is the timeline that it should be, and that it shouldn't be time-based. It should be objective. We should be basing your progression on objective measures, including your ability, your flexibility, strength, and your proprioceptive ability. So I will talk to people about individual papers like that. But the overall gestalt of how I rehabilitate people, I don't think that, at least at this point, I have not seen any papers on that. And I think that is because it is a marriage of all the experience that I have had getting to this point at which I find myself now. And that is my experience as an athlete, my experience as a patient, my experience as a personal trainer and fitness coach, my experience as an orthopedic trainee, my experience as an orthopedic staff person, and then finally my experience as a gym owner and mobility person. It like what I do and what I tell my patients is a marriage of all those things. And so in that, it's not that I don't think other people have similar views, but how I treat people and how I train people, how we rehabilitate people is a function of all those things. And that, I think my experiences in all of those things are unique. And so that is part of the reason why one of the things that I'm doing now, which I'm hoping to have done over the Christmas break and to first start presenting for the first time in 2023, I have a course that I'm working on,
Awesome.
which is I'm going to have different levels of the course with different targets, but the course is called Apex. And so Apex Level 1 is going to be targeted towards physiotherapists, and it's going to be this, the conglomeration of all of these things that I have learned and my approach to training and rehabilitating people. And I want to share that with the world, and I want to share that with physiotherapists. And then, so the course is, for the most, I would say it's about 80% done now. So I'm hoping to get that done over the next couple of weeks so that I can start promoting it and presenting it early 2023. But that is the first part. And then once I have that going and I have people starting to do these movements and starting to train people in this way, then the next part of that is to validate that, right? So that I can have the data to not just say, hey, this is what we do, but now we've run people through this treatment course for these particular problems. This is what we observed with our training regimen, and this is it. These are our results compared to these other training regimens. And so this comes back to the science, right? To provide the data, to say to people, this is what I do, this is why I do it, and here is the data to back it up, right? So this is what I want to do, because I don't think that, I think that I've kind of stumbled, and I use that word because I don't want people to think, oh, I think I'm smarter than everybody else. I don't think so. I just think that my experience, I have just had the right combination of experiences, which allowed me to stumble upon this approach, which I think is effective and I think is beneficial for people. So I want to share that with the world, because I want as many people as possible to get better as quickly as possible. One of the things I just let me find this here for a second, because I want to say it how I worded it in my talk. I just put this in there the other day. Just give me a second here. Oh, so yeah, so the concept. So one of the sides that I talk about is called medical morality. Okay, and and I put this slide in there because in some of the comments for my videos, and this is videos on nothing having to do with rehab. This is just videos, say for example, on the fentanyl video. Some of the comments where people are like, oh, doctors, all they want to do is give medication and it's all your fault, the opioid epidemic, blah, yada, yada, yada. And it's all for big pharma. So I thought, um, I was thinking about the idea of morality in medicine, and then I thought about, I should apply this to the Apex course because I want people to understand why it is that I have the position that I have about therapy. And so the slide was medical morality, and so this is the position or the statement that I said. I said, it is my goal to treat the problem as directly as possible with the least number of sessions at the lowest cost to the patient to provide the optimal result in the shortest amount of time, and also to educate and empower the patient. Think how, like, these are all things that are beneficial. I want people to get as better as fast as they can with as little cost to themselves as possible, doing as little harm to them as possible. And I want to give them education, and I want them to understand that really, if I give you this information and teach you how to do it, you don't need me, you can do it yourself, right? And it's kind of like this. I joke about, I'm teaching people, I'm trying to put myself out of business. I'm teaching people how to do it themselves. But I think that that's the right thing to do, right? And people, it comes back to what I said before, knowledge is power. And I think my goal is to educate people. And I'm trying to educate as many people as I can. And part of that, and one aspect of the education is educating people and teaching them that they don't really, for most things, unless it's traumatic, the bone is sticking out through the skin or the ligaments are all torn or whatever. For most things, they don't really need me or a therapist or a chiropractor. They need a little bit of education, a little bit of common sense, and some guidance. And here, let me give it to you, right?
I love that. And I love how that you're actually giving back. You're not just sort of saying, no, you need surgery, then you need to come to me for the next 7, 8 years. You're actually just going, this is what the evidence shows. Do you think that's what makes you such a good surgeon, that that you learn from failure? So if anything goes bad, you kind of go away and see how you can fix it. You're watching these videos, so you're learning how people have messed up or how the surgery's gone wrong. And then you're using that to kind of, like, do you, because I'm not a big fan of like box breathing to deal with fear and anxiety at the time of that. But do you find that you're actually so well prepared that you've read over and you've practiced this and that you're using the experience to not feel the fear, to overcome that anxiety?
So, well, first I got to preface it by saying I don't know if I'm a good surgeon. I hope that I'm a good surgeon. I would like to be.
I would say
surgeon.
so.
But I know that, one of the areas around which I feel very confident is that I'm a technician. I use my hands, and I feel very confident about my ability to use my hands. But I often say to students or to people when they ask, if they say to me, well, what's your favorite case? What's your favorite kind of surgery to do? Like I'm primarily trained as a sports guy, but I do all kinds of orthopedic surgeries. And some of my favorite cases have nothing to do with sports. And the cases that I enjoy the most are the ones that frighten me the most. And the reason why, there are cases I can prepare perfectly for the case. I can do everything exactly as the way that I learned in the textbook and everything. But even still, bad shit happens. And sometimes I do something, and like, say, for example, I'm doing a hip replacement. I'm putting in the femoral component. I'm hitting it with a hammer. And I know that I can hit it so hard before the bone will break. But, in this particular case, I'm working on little old granny, and her bone is a little bit softer than normal. Bang, I cracked the femur. It's like, oh, shit. Now what do I do? Because the component's going to be loose. I have a femur fracture on top of that. And I took something that might have been an elective case, and I've turned it into a trauma case now. And I, even though those cases are what I call sphincter puckering, okay, because they make my butthole clench up,
A
I enjoy.
technical term.
I don't enjoy those cases in the moment that I'm doing them, because it's like, oh shit, how do I deal with this problem? But in hindsight, I enjoy those cases, and the reason why I enjoy those cases is because they challenge me. Right? This is not the way it looked in the textbook. How am I going to fix this thing? How am I going to figure out how to get out of this problem? I enjoy those, and I enjoy the challenge of trying to come up with a novel way to deal with this that somebody might not have thought about before. And so, reading what I read, and you know, looking at the content that I do, or making the content that I do, is just part of the process of me gathering more information. There are lots of times when I look at what I do, and like where I've taught myself skills. So, say for example, as I said, I'm a general orthopedist because I work in a community hospital, but I am trained primarily as a sports orthopedist. And I would say, like, normally when you look at sports orthopedic surgeons, they usually do one joint. So they're a shoulder guy, they're a knee guy, I'm a hip guy. I am not that. I have learned to do arthroscopy, so arthroscopic, minimally invasive surgery in all of those joints. And for some of that stuff, so for example, hip arthroscopy, I've largely trained myself. I was exposed to it for a short period of time during my fellowship, but I learned how to do that myself, trained myself how to do that. And I've trained myself to the point where I could say that I am, we just had a paper. I'm part of a group, an international group called the Define Group, and that paper was just published in the Arthroscopy Journal today. And I'm one of the authors on that paper, even though I'm not an academic guy. And I was invited to be part of that group because of the recognition of what I was doing with in hip arthroscopy in my country. And I am very proud of the fact that I taught myself basically how to do hip arthroscopy. And but it wasn't just in that, like, I went and did some courses. Part of what I learned was from other stuff that had nothing to do with hips. I took skills that I had learned from knee arthroscopy and skills that I had learned from shoulder arthroscopy. And I said, hey, what they do in the hip is kind of similar. And we use kind of some of the skill set. So I wonder if this thing that I do on a weekly basis over here in the shoulder, and this thing over here that I do on a weekly basis in the knee, if I could try those things over here in the hip and if they would work. And, I took those skills that I learned elsewhere and just kind of shifted focus a little bit and said, okay, I know this is a different joint. It looks different, but I know how to do the skills already. And if I can wrap my head around the joint looking different, I can just take these skills that I do over here, apply them over here, and I can do it. And what do you know? It works, right? So I think that there's some fear, certainly in some situations, but I now recognize that in orthopedics, and I'm sure it's this way in other areas as well, but in orthopedics, there are some core skills, okay, and those core skills apply whether I'm working in shoulder, the knee, the ankle, whatever. There are some core skills, and just because the landscape looks different, I know how to do these skills, right? And so I just have to take these skills from this landscape, bring them over to this canvas, and now work in a different landscape. And I have comfort. So even in these challenging situations, I have comfort in knowing, like I can manage this. it's challenging, but I can manage this because I know how to do X, Y, and Z. And those guys over here that are already doing this thing, they're just doing X, Y, and Z. They're doing X, Y, and Z with a different background than what I'm using over here. But I can just take those skills and apply it to this background. And eventually, if I do that enough, then the background becomes very familiar, and then I am comfortable with that as well.
No, I love that. I love that approach of some you kind of saying, well, can we use this? And then you're using the experience, and then you're looking at the data, and then you're thinking, did it work? Okay. But it's like you're saying, it's like people who say, oh no, that's not the way we do it. You're now proving that yes, it works, and here's the data that backs it up. And the people who said, no, don't be silly, that'll never work, now accept it as the way it's done.
Yes, for sure. I just said to my wife the other day, I'm at this point in my life where I'm not people saying to me, "Oh, it can't be done." Like I'm not interested. I don't even want to be around those people because I'm in the business now of figuring out how it can be done. And I'll just point to, although someone said to me the other day, can we pick another person to talk about other than this? I will just point to Elon Musk for a moment. Elon Musk is going a little bit crazy. I will admit he's going off the rails a little bit. But the one thing that I will say about Elon Musk that I very much do admire, people have said to Elon Musk all the time, this can't be done. That's not the way we do it. And he just basically says, fuck that shit, and figures out a way to do it, right? There was a time at which the Russian space agency, he wanted to buy a used rocket from them so that he could figure out how to build rockets. And they would not sell it to him, right? When he first started SpaceX. So what did he do? He learned how to make them himself. And now there are Russian cosmonauts that are being flown to the International Space Station on SpaceX product, right? So who got the last laugh, right? Certainly wasn't the dude that said, that's not how it can't be done. We can't, that's not how it's done. Elon Musk, the guy who said, I'm going to figure it out. Maybe that's not how you do it now, but I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do it. He's the one who's got the last laugh. So I want to do that in my life and employ a can-do mindset. And yeah, there will be challenges and things that I have not yet figured out that present problems for me in my life, right? I have these things all the time. But I am very much, and I said it before, I very much view myself as a problem solver. And I am really, I really like to apply myself in trying to figure out, okay, well, this thing, I can't do it. How? It's like, to me, it's no different than a video game. How can I beat this level? Ugh! I haven't found the secret yet, but it's all games to me, man. Like, how do I beat this level?
Do you think that also then sort of bleeds into your man management? Because you have all these amazing experts joining your rehab team. You've got masseuses. You've got all these kind of amazing teams. You work with like a lot of amazing nurses, anesthesiologists, and all these sort of things. Do you think that attitude of we can always try new things? I want you to go away and try different things. If you thought you have a good model of something that might work, let's bring it in and see if it works. Then we'll sort of feed off each other. Do you encourage your staff to have that kind of idea that just because it's done like that, we can create it like this, we can shape it, but then have the data to back it up?
For sure, I'm okay for people to try new things and do new things, because I am certainly not the one who's going to come up with every new idea, or I'm certainly not going to be the only one that can come up with something that works or is effective. Lots of other people are going to be able to do that. I just want to have data and information that supports that position. That's all. And so if somebody shows me something new and it works, then I'm like, oh, great, I've learned something, right? And if they want to try something, I am more than okay to do that or to try that. I want to be able. I don't want them to just say, "Well, we want to do this thing," or "I want to try this thing because I don't want that. I want to know, well, why? What's the reasoning behind that, and what's the proof for that particular thing? Um,
No, it's a great way of doing it, and it's letting your employees kind of off the leash. It's saying to them, "Let's see what you're capable of. Use your interest, use your." And it's like you saying, it's like paint with a new brush on this canvas. Kind of letting them. I love that kind of management. It's like letting the person not sink or swim, but actually grow as a person and
yes,
learn. And it is a beautiful way to do it.
they
How
they may paint something beautiful, man.
I love that. I will have to use that analogy more often. And how do you? Because you're a surgeon, you're a business owner, you're a father, you've got a beautiful family. You're married for over was it 30 years now?
Yeah, going on 32 years. We've been well. This will be 33rd year. Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations. But how do you juggle all these conflicting demands? I always like to ask like top performers how on earth they kind of, not so much like the morning routine, but maybe just do you have a philosophy? Do you have a like how do you keep all this stuff without going mad?
Well, I would say, I kind of manage it poorly, but all tongue in cheek aside, I try to. My wife is reminding me all the time. I need to sort of scale down what I'm doing because I'm a type A plus personality, so I would be involved with everything and then not be able to do anything to any great level. I try to actually focus, to narrow my focus to only a few things, as few things as possible, so that I spend time and become better at them and at the things that I'm involved with. And I try to simplify as much as possible. It's funny, like I when I consider the surgeons, the group of surgeons I work with at my hospital, I have one colleague who will, every new procedure or every kind of thing, he always wants to do. And then he does everything. And people say, well, why don't you do this procedure? And I think to myself, I think the breadth of what I do in orthopedics is already pretty wide. But I say to them, I purposely choose to limit what I'm doing because there's only so much time in the day, and I only have so much time in the OR. And I want to be damn good at every case that I do. So I recognize that there is a certain volume of cases of particular type that you need to do to maintain a particular level of competence. So, for example, hip arthroscopy, which is one of the things I do, the learning curve for that procedure is very high. And you need to do about 75 cases before you get good or get competent. Forget even good. Before you get competent, you need to do about 75 cases. And then you need to do at least about 50 cases a year to maintain that level of competence. So my goal when I'm planning out my cases for the year is that, okay, I know what numbers I need to achieve, right? At this point, I already have 300, maybe 350 hip arthroscopies under my belt, but I know I'm going to do at least 50 a year so that I can maintain the level of competence that I have. And that means, well, if I do 350 or if I do 50 of those cases and I'm only doing in total maybe 400 cases of whatever a year, well, 50 of them are gone for hip arthroscopy. And then if I want to maintain my competence for hip replacements, well, I got to do another 50 to 100 of those. Okay, that's 150 gone. And then I want to do that for knee replacements. So that's another 100 gone. And so that only leaves 100 or 150 more cases, which I can focus on. So that right there, that's only 3 types of surgery that I'm doing. So I have to be careful about what I do with the other 150 so that I can maintain that skill set. And I look at everything that I'm doing that in that same light. So I spend time on YouTube and social media. And I think, well, I want to be good at that. So I'm going to devote some time to that, but that means I need to devote less time to other things. And, some people might look at what I have on my plate now and go, oh my God, you have so much on your plate. Because for some people, they're just orthopedic surgeon, right? For some people, they're just YouTube social media content creators. For some people, they're just gym owners, right? And I'm all those 3 things. And I would say, you know what? I could certainly do, if I was focusing my attention on any one of those things, I could certainly be better at any of those things by doing that. But I do think that I am doing each of those things adequately enough. My performance in those things is adequate enough that I'm okay with that morally and ethically, and I think that I am focused enough that I can do those things adequately, but also become better at those things over time, because there's not so many other things to draw my attention. So, those are the things that I choose to do. Those are the things I spend my time doing. And I'm not really doing much of other stuff. But the other aspect of it is that, as I told you before, I'm trying to do cool. I try to steer my life in the direction of I'm doing cool. There's cool shit that I like, so I'm going to steer my life towards that cool shit. And I just happen to have been fortunate enough to be able to turn the cool shit that I like into businesses and into work, right? Like, I like doing things with my hand. I like human anatomy. I like medicine. Oh, wow. Look, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I like working out and I like training people. Oh, well, look, wow. I own a rehab facility. I own a gym. And I like social media, creating content and teaching people. Oh, look at, wow. I'm a content creator, making educational content on fitness, which I love, and orthopedics, which I love. So, it's looks like I'm doing a lot of things, but I've really kind of narrowed down, and everything that I do comes from that focus. And if I think about in terms of YouTube, and I think about people who grow their channels very quickly, and you can see that you'll hear something where they talk about in content creation, niche down, niche down, niche down. And it seems like if you make your content very specific, it's going to be hard to grow your channel and grow your reach. But in niching down, you become very good at this particular thing. People recognize the value of the content that you create, and then they engage with it more emphatically, and they share it more emphatically with other people, which then allows you to grow quicker. And so I'm trying to, if I think of my life as my whole life as a YouTube video, I'm trying to niche down to make my life about fitness, wellness, orthopedics. And in so doing, that is allowing me to grow exponentially in doing all of the things that sort of come from that.
I suppose it's like Gary Vaynerchuk said, it's like you can make a business out your passion if you crush it, if you spend time on it, creating content on it, and build a brand around it, and you're certainly doing that, and you're changing lives with it. But what tips would you give me just now? Because I'm a single guy now, I've put on the COVID weight, I'm losing that, we get back to the gym, etc. But for a man that's been married 32 years, beautiful family, you're doing all this amazing things. What tips have you got for us single guys? How do we find somebody? Because I remember your video on you want to be married to an orthopedic surgeon until you see we're away from home, we're always doing stuff. What tips would you give like lonely, chubby guys like myself?
Well, I if I think to how I would say to you the same thing I would say to myself were I to be out doing, if I were not to be, married or with somebody. And I think, how would I go about finding a partner? And I think it's really pretty simple in that, number one, I would look after myself, because if I don't look after myself, nobody else is going to. And so by that, I mean just by looking after myself physically and mentally. So working out, I think everybody needs to do that. And then eating well, and feeling good, finding the things that make me feel good about myself. So in my particular case, exercise, reading, enjoying sport, that kind of stuff. So I would do that. That's the first thing, because you need to be happy with yourself before somebody else can be happy with you. And then I would just go and do the stuff that you love, because if you do the stuff that you love, you are going to enjoy it. You're going to be in a good mood when you do it, and you are going to resonate passion when you are doing that thing. And if I think about what I would like to see in a potential partner, that those are the things that I'd want to see, and those are the things that would have people, that would cause me to gravitate towards somebody. And I think that's the thing that would have people gravitate towards me. I think, in being, just as when I started my YouTube channel and I was sort of dry and didactic at the start, and then because I was trying to be this academic type, right? And then I thought, no, I'm just going to be myself. And then I started to have growth after I was myself. I'm loud, and I'm a little bit of a handful, and I'm a crazy kind of guy, but I'm just being myself. And in my workplace setting, people gravitate towards me because I'm easy to get along with. I'm comfortable, and I allow them to feel good about themselves. And so, and in my videos, I think by taking complex topics, and I don't like to use the term dumbing them down, because I don't want people to think that I think they're dumb. It's not that, but people are not educated in those things that I'm talking about. So by taking those complex topics and making them approachable to people, I help people to learn about those things, but and I do that in a way that makes them feel good about themselves. And so in so doing, they feel comfortable being around me or consuming my content. And that makes them want to come back and spend time with me. So all of those things that make that happen, those are the same things that I think would make me approachable, and then make it make it possible for me to find somebody, and to spend time with. I if I feel good about myself, I radiate passion, and kindness, and humor and fun. Then people will want to gravitate around that, and then it will become easier. I won't have to worry about it. I think I tell people that, if I ever talk to people about trying to find somebody, I had to talk to my daughter about this before, and because she's like, "Oh, why do I have a boyfriend?" I'm like, and my daughter is absolutely stunning. And I said, you should spend less time worrying about why you don't have somebody, and just go out and have fun. I said, because when people look at you, they think you're beautiful. But if they see you and you're, you are always looking down and dejected and sour, and they think, oh, you're cold and you're not approachable, people are not going to be not going to be interesting, right? So you need to just care about yourself, look after yourself, and basically make yourself so that you would want to hang out with you, right? And if you would want to hang out with you, then the rest of it will take care of itself. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say to people. This is just
I suppose it's like,
doesn't
who's going to love you if you don't love yourself?
yes,
That you're the person that you need to have the best relationship with. I
for
love that.
sure.
It's a beautiful answer. I mean, we could chat for hours, and I hope we will. Like, but I know I've used up so much of your time today. So
Okay.
what would you want people to take from this? Like, what would not so much as I call it a go home message, but what would you want people to kind of remember, or a general sort of philosophy from this, or something that you would like them to apply in their lives going forward?
So I guess what I want them to know is basically two things. So number one, education is cool, and learning. We should all strive to learn more, because learning is information, data. These are the currencies of our the world that we live in. And so people think that it's money, and money is part of the medium, but really it's about knowledge and information. So the more you can teach yourself, and people don't necessarily need to. People may have whatever they think about the education system, and they may say whatever they say or feel however they want about that. They don't necessarily need to learn in the standard education system, but education is king. So reading books, people poo-poo reading books and learning and listening to podcasts and all that kind of stuff. um, I am always listening to podcasts. I'm always reading stuff. I'm always learning stuff. So education is king. So, and education is cool. So don't listen to whatever anybody tells you. If they tell you differently, the more you know, the better. So I would say that. And the other thing that I would say is that um, wellness is extremely important in our life, and physical activity is part of that. And so while I think it's very important to be smart and to educate and read, there are a lot of people who would do that and then they will shy away from education, or shy away from physical activity, and say that it's not important. Oh, I just don't like to work out, or I just don't like to do whatever. Well, if you don't like to work out, you don't like to live, because that's the thing that's going to keep you in shape so that you can acquire more information and more knowledge. So I would say that uh, incorporating fitness and wellness into your life are very important. But it's for most people who are not competitive athletes, bigger, faster, stronger. Although that I lived my life by that for an extended period of time. For most people, that's not what's important. What's important is being well rounded and focusing on longevity, right? So that means addressing all aspects of fitness, from flexibility, strength, mobility, coordinated movement, and but also for diet and eating good whole foods, eating less processed foods, and all of that kind of stuff. So those are the two things I would say. Education is king. Everybody should be as smart as possible, and that they should look after their wellness. And the last little bit about the wellness also is that you don't need to follow necessarily somebody's. There is no one best way to do it, right? The best way is the way that is going to allow you to do it for as long as possible, comfortably and sustainably. So that what you need to be doing. So those are the
Okay.
two things.
Well, until we can get round two, and I'm almost got to go on to another appointment, but I would love to have you on again. It's been an absolute joy to cover, and there's so many things I still want to ask you about. Each of your videos is a rabbit hole in itself. I'd love to go in and chat for ages about like space marines and all these sort of things. So we've definitely got to do a round 2. But until then,
Yes.
how can people find you? How can we connect? See the great work you're doing. Visit your facility. Just follow the juggernaut that you're building on social media.
Sure. So if people are located, if anybody is in Canada, in Ottawa, the nation's capital, we are more than happy to have them come to the facility and actually physically take part. We do day passes, and we love to have new people come see us. So if you're ever visiting there as a tourist, or you find yourself in Ottawa, come join us. We'd love to have you. But if not, then you can find us online. You can find Human 2.0, which is our business, online on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook under Human 2.0. And then if you're more interested in the general content that I create, you can find me on Facebook, Dr. Chris Raynor, on YouTube at Chris Raynor MD, Instagram at Stable Knees with a Z, and on TikTok at Dr. Chris Raynor. And I have content on all those platforms, and I'm always sharing. I share content at least on a weekly basis on YouTube, and I try to do it more frequently on the other platforms, particularly TikTok and Instagram. But content creation is limited by the availability of time. So I'm not always as up on those ones as I am on YouTube.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.